Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Potatoes South Africa's Industry Roundtable. I think before we get into the discussion, we'll hear from Mr. Willie Jacobs first, CEO of Potatoes SA, just to contextualize the roundtable a bit.
Thank you, and thank you for all the participants around the table sharing the passion that I think we're starting to create in this space as well. I think the important thing is just to give you some insight in terms of what led on to this conversation. And we had a potato industry forum a few months ago, and from there it became clear that there is a general lack of understanding from not only the general public, but from all the stakeholders in terms of, we're talking about the fresh produce markets as such at the moment. And through Dr. Johan van Deventer's suggestion that we need to have a type of a CODESA in terms of the fresh produce markets, the initiative came from our marketing agents as well to say, okay, listen, but why don't we start straightforward conversations so that we can get insight, get understanding, get contributions from people to also raise the awareness of what we are dealing with in terms of this issue. So from my point of view, I think the important outcome that I'm looking for today is basically to highlight the importance of the fresh produce markets as a start. Also to understand the realities that all of us are facing, all the stakeholders as much as possible are facing in this whole situation. And then just to have general discussions in terms of getting stakeholders closer to one another in terms of moving forward, creating a common goal, and understanding what we want to aim at the end of the day. So if we can get to a point of let's call it a common goal and a collective interest after a discussion like today's, then it will help us to actually path the way for future conversations and maybe movement towards improvement of the quality of the industry itself. So thank you for all the participants. Looking forward to all the contributions, and please, we have a discussions as informal as possible, and if you feel like you need to have a contribution, please discuss it.
Okay, so as Willie said, it's an informal discussion, so when you want to say something, please add to the conversation. Just bearing in mind, of course, that we want to be respectful of each other and so allow whoever's speaking to finish their train of thought or whatever it is that they're saying. And also to remember that this conversation is more solutions driven. We don't really want to focus too much on the challenges, but more on what we can do to overcome those challenges. Okay, so let's start off the conversation again with just a bit of contextualizing perhaps about the primary issues facing traders and producers on the fresh produce markets. Is anyone who wants to begin?
Can we maybe just start by a round of introductions?
Oh, sorry, of course. Okay, getting ahead of myself. So let's just introduce ourselves then. I'm Janine Ryan, the editor of Farmers Weekly, and I'm chairing the discussion.
I'm Madeleine Lau. I'm the senior economist for ABSA Agribusiness.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Thokozani Twala. I'm from the Joburg Fresh Produce Market. I'm currently serving as the board chairperson of the market.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Willie Jacobs, as you know by now, probably CEO of Potatoes South Africa, and it's a privilege to be here.
Good morning, everyone. I am J.F. Merwe, farmer from Christiana and chairman of Potatoes South Africa.
Good morning, I'm Johan van Deventer, wearing two hats. One is being on the Johannesburg Fresh Produce Market, and before that on a commission serving the Minister of Agriculture. That's now already many moons ago. And there was such a central control over the markets in South Africa, believe it or not. So if any of you are interested in the fresh produce markets as we know it today, everything have a origin, and I was sort of part of that investigation where the markets started and the system that we know today, meaning the commission system. And there's many reasons why it is a commission system and not a straight buy and sell. Any case, so that's the one hat, and then I was deputy director on the Johannesburg market. And after that, I was for nearly 30 years with the Shoprite Group and heading up Freshmark, which is the fresh produce arm for the Shoprite Checkers Group, independent business unit. The way Shoprite is doing business, every division is a small little business in the big business. So that was hard business, tire and tar, and that's me. And I love this industry, and that's why I'm sitting here. I'm retired as I sit here. I have a wine farm, so if you're ever in the Cape or in the Paarl region, come and enjoy wine with me.
Good morning, I'm Lisa Roberts. I'm from Plaas Media. I'm a radio television presenter for Plaas TV and RSG Landbou.
Hi, I'm Anne-Marie Helberg, also at Plaas Media.
Hello, I'm Bunny Simango from PR Works, the PR agency project.
And Kirsten Gurry, also from PR Works.
Good morning, ladies, gents. I'm Teresa, so also with two hats. So I'm executive director of a market agency, DW Fresh Produce, and we operate on Pretoria as well as Johannesburg markets. And then also I'm vice president of IMASA, which stands for Institute of Market Agents of South Africa.
Good morning, everyone. Nico Muller, owner of Cell de Villiers Market Agents in Joburg, and I'm president of IMASA National, South Africa.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Francois Knowles. I'm the registrar of APAC. APAC is the Agricultural Produce Agents Council. My primary focus is to regulate agents in South Africa. I do that for livestock, fresh produce, and export.
That's where all the grey hair is coming.
And I would like to add that I've been married for 35 years.
That's just half of the grey.
Good morning, I'm Susan Murray. I'm a journalist for Farmers Week.
Okay, great. Now, sorry, I probably won't remember everybody's names, but yeah. So let's start with our discussion with talking about the, actually let's start with the importance of the fresh produce markets. I think that's probably the sort of gist of the whole matter. Who wants to kick us off? I think maybe Johan is always a good starting point.
I think the importance, if we want couple it to South Africa and the realities of South Africa and where we are today, I think the role of the fresh produce, and I hope somebody is going to take up the challenge to maybe put it over into monetary terms, to really see what is the total. We can look at the turnover, but that's half the story. That's maybe a quarter of the story or even less. So if you look at the whole food chain from supplier, and how many suppliers cannot exist without the fresh produce markets, and then add to that the upcoming farmers, a process that must take place. The fresh produce market is the place where you can get experience to maybe later do exports and maybe later to supply the chain stores, because it's not so easy to supply the chain stores. They're full of specifications and cold chain and food safety, and I'm not saying the market's not doing that, but they're not so strict on it. So the ideal place to, surely you first creep and then you crawl and then you walk and then you run. Is this the same that I'm trying to say with the fresh produce market? It's the ideal place to start and to get exposed to demand and supply, and how is it really working, and which days are the busiest days, and when is the special days, is it before the weekend, is it after the weekend, Christmas days, etc., etc., and you can carry on. And then you have the players on the market, which is also thousands of them. You take the market agents with all their employees, and then the rest is all the service the whole service sector is the computers, it's the transport industry, and you can carry on. And then you come to the trade. The trade cannot exist, nor the informal sector, which is today roughly, what did we say this morning, Willie?
40%.
60%.
Yeah, 60%
of the fresh produce market's turnover today is those guys that I salute them every time I see them. They stand next to the road, no help from nobody, taking a risk, being a businessman, buying, trying to sell, make a profit, to be on the market the next day again. This industry cannot exist today without them. Sometimes we think it's a nuisance, but it's not a nuisance, definitely not. The formal trade more moved off the market, and that's a big challenge for us here as well, to try and get them back, find out exactly why they moved off the market. And there I'm put on my Freshmark hat. We are one of the big ones who today only buy, say, 3% of the markets, and 97% is direct, eye-to-eye business. But there's reasons, we touched on it before. You're not going to get them back by shouting. You'll have to ask and find out why they moved off the market. And I don't think you will ever get them back fully, but I think you can get a portion of that business you can get back. And if you talk about the informal sector, you can just think how many jobs are involved in the informal sector. There's a buyer on the market. We've seen them. You have the bucket traders, they take the product. Even the taxi industry, in their off times, they transport product to the spots where they resell it on the streets. I think it's a massive role that the fresh product, maybe underestimated role in our agriculture. And I again say, I hope one day some other student will do his thesis or whatever on it and find out exactly what is the total impact of the fresh produce markets on not only the fresh produce industry, but in our whole economy. I think it's massive.
Yeah, I agree. I think I think we take the fresh produce markets for granted, and the importance of them is not nearly as reported on as should be in the agricultural media, for example.
Just to add to it, people sometimes think that the chain stores are the baddies and they are working against the markets. Again, I say find out why. But in a heated debate at Korkom in Ceres, I was on the spot, and Chris Burgess, I don't know if I call him opposition or a colleague.
Close friend.
Close friend, okay. Rest in peace. Was the chairperson, and the challenge I could see that in the questions, here I was in the fire line. Whatever reason, I had to speak for all the chain stores all together, and we've put figures together, and you know, okay, it was an onion, basically an onion meeting, all together. The whole chain store industry, all together, do not buy 20% of this country's onions. It's in fact 18%, and I said, okay, let's make it 20. So where is the 80% going? It's going to the markets.
Yeah.
So how? And I think it will be exactly the same with potatoes. If you talk about the big commodities, when it gets to maybe finicky product like mushrooms, it will maybe swing the 80-20 to the other side, that 80% will be the chain stores and 20% will be the other traders. But it's massive. I must say, the chain stores are not massive. They at best 20%.
So maybe Janine, if I can add to that point.
Yes.
that Johan just made. So Willie asked me before the meeting just to give some context and statistics on the industry, which I can share, but I think to Johan's point, I struggled to find consistent sources with values depicting what share goes through fresh produce markets, what is the total value of production in the industry, and things like that. And I think going forward, we need to take account of the fact that data is going to be the currency in which we trade in. So to position yourself, to be competitive, and to plan for the future, every industry needs to think about how they're going to get data, manage data, and use it to position the industry so that everyone can benefit from the strategic application thereof.
We hope that day will one day come. But you know, on that very same meeting, I said my proposal is that the onion farmers must come together and stop, you know, working in the dark, and they still play poker or snooker or whatever. At least snooker, you can see the balls on the table. And I said, why don't you copy Potato South Africa and do a Onion South Africa? And immediately after the meeting, one of the big players in the Western Cape came to me and they said, that will be the Donderse dag. So now how?
I get that, and I think there's a lot of good examples like Potato SA, and we've spoken about the pork guys that's really trailblazers in getting data and ensuring its integrity and everything that goes along with it, which is probably easier in an integrated industry, but I think the message should be for everyone to take hands.
So what is the problem with collecting or recording data? What is the, or is that very
That's maybe
multifaceted?
Willie, you should comment on that.
Look, I think to a large extent, and then my colleague here next to me can actually give us a bit more perspective in terms of the data collection, but there is an issue with regards to certain markets trying to use their own data systems. We don't have a collective data system. We don't have a collective transaction system, which gives insight into each market. I know the Joburg market now specifically, with their IT guys are probably much more progressive than anybody else, but it's the most difficult area for us to get data from the truth as well, because the moment you can't standardize data and you can't have the same interface to share data with, you start losing in terms of data quality. This is also one of the drives from Potato South Africa side through our development of our app now, is to create a centralized database that can actually now interpret all the information sources that are available, because there's just too many. So I think the most important thing is for us, if we can look into a way moving forward, is to get consensus. But this is now this whole story about creating a common goal. If we want a common goal, we have got a common direction to follow. Then a centralized database is a base in which we can actually mine the information and also give feedback to all the participants. It's going to be the first pivot point to work from.
Yes.
If I may come in, thank you. Now and then you'll see me raising my hand. You know, when you sit in boards, you know, I'll say you must raise your hand so that you can be noted. But thank you so much, colleagues. You know, I think it's a very important conversation that we are having. And as the Joburg markets, this is what we also wanted to do. In fact, I can indicate that, I mean, we are a fairly new board. We just appointed end of February. So, you know, we had to come in and just stabilize the Joburg market because there were some challenges when we came in as well. But I think things are starting to shape up quite well. So let me just deal with the first issue in terms of, you know, the importance of the fresh produce market. I think they're very important. You know, we see the fresh produce market as a platform that creates, you know, that ecosystem, right, that allows big and small farmers to come in and play. So you level in the field to a certain extent. You know, the market plays a role of, you know, price setting mechanism as well, which is very important as well, you know, in terms of what we are trying to look at. And then the other one that I think, you know, and especially with the Ukraine-Russia, you know, situation, issues around food security, you know. Obviously, the Joburg fresh produce market has a market share of almost like 48%. It has been declining. And I remember one weekend, the colleagues from IMASA will remember, I think it was March, the long weekend of the 21st. We had a fire incident at the market, right? 2 halls, had a fire incident. There was a contractor on site, and they created a problem for us. We had to work throughout that whole weekend with City Power, and this was the first time. Because I said to the colleagues, we can't have an issue when we've got a sister entity called City Power. We're a city-owned entity. And we worked with City Power over that weekend to make it a point that came Tuesday morning, we were trading. Because we look at the market playing a very critical role in terms of food security in this country. You can't have a situation where, the market is not trading. So that's one thing that we're able to do, as a new board and working with management. The other one, obviously, it's us now, just working with other colleagues, and I think this is why we are also here. For us, we want to collaborate with the Tshwane Fresh Produce Market. We want to collaborate with the Springs in Ekurhuleni. We want to start in Gauteng first, to say how do the 3 markets work together. But obviously, we must work with the rest of the other markets. When the flood situation happened down in Durban, most of the produce were diverted to the Joburg market. We had to react to that situation. We couldn't turn the farmers away. We had to make a plan in terms of saying how do we accommodate, those produce that were being forwarded to us. So you can see that, yes, Joburg market plays a very critical role, but it's part of the bigger ecosystem, and we all need to work together. And then let me quickly just, mention something around the issue of data collection. I do agree. I think at the market we are quite good. We've got a very, unique and a bespoke system that we are currently using. I'm told that the other 23 markets are using a different market system. We're using the SPS, which is a bespoke system for the Joburg market. So we're able to collect quite a lot of data in terms of our market. We can tell you exactly, how many traders are coming through to the market. On average, we're having about 13,000 people on a daily basis coming to do transactions at the market. So from a statistics point of view, we're very strong, but we have a sense in terms of what's happening at a national level when we bring all the other markets as well. And I think definitely there is room for collaboration, but not only just the fresh produce markets, but with the industry as well.
Yeah.
And I think this conversation comes in quite handy. We've started having engagement with Agri-SA at a national level because, again, as a market, we're supplied by farmers from all over the country, but we're also engaging with Agri-SA Gauteng as well because we really want to work very closely with the stakeholders along the value chain. So I think definitely, it's a good start, and then we can start saying then how do we collaborate? How do we bring in commercial banks, because it's a bigger ecosystem as well. You guys are quite good, in terms of collecting information, processing data as well, looking now at technology and innovation as well. So how do we partner? Because I think the country really needs us, to work together so that we can take these fresh produce markets to the next level.
Fantastic.
Indeed. So I think we need to talk more about public and private sector collaboration. But before we get to that point, I think we're all sort of in agreement that the fresh produce markets are an essential part of South Africa and trade. But other than the sort of lack of an integrated data system, what other challenges are producers and traders facing on the market? And the only reason I want to talk about this is because, if we want to come up with possible solutions, I think we just need to pinpoint the biggest problems that we're currently facing. Does anyone want to kick off?
Yes, if I may. I think we are at a point of no return with markets. We can no longer just accept the norm. Markets need to change and need to evolve, and markets need to be placed in the spotlight again as to their relative importance. You talked about the price issue. I call it price discovery.
Yeah.
That's a crucial element that happens at markets. Prices are discovered by agents, and that is what agents are the experts at. No one is really better, and I will support them unconditionally in this regard. So it's important that crisis creates opportunity, and this opportunity is here. We can, for the first time in a long time, talk to one another about what needs to be done. And I think we need to be very truthful about where we are at. We can no longer be nice about the real issues, the maintenance. As a matter of fact, there's a few pillars on which a market is built and on which it operates. The first is security must be at the market. If there's no security at a market, nobody will go there. The farmers will not go to the markets. The buyers will not frequent the market. The second one is maintenance. If there's a massive pothole in the gate, no farmer will drive in there with his pallets that will do this. Maintenance must be beefed up and money must be reinvested into markets. For far too long, we've neglected markets. And to a large extent, this is in the hands of local government, but we'll get to that point later on. Then hygiene. You know, you don't need money to pick up papers. You need management for people to clean markets. Markets are filthy. And if you don't take my word for that alone, go visit our markets. It could be better. These are places of excellence where we sell food, and it's dirty. How can we accept it? No.
Yeah.
And then there's a fourth common denominator. We need good management at markets. And if people are not doing that, we must take them to task. And unfortunately, we are at that point. So from my perspective, I would like to say we need to know what we don't know. And for the first time in a long time, I think we are able to talk about what we don't know. We need to learn. And if we know the answers, and I think it will scare us if we find out what we don't know, because there's a lot of things that are not in place. So just to answer your question, there's a lot of issues at markets. But we must be very careful not to dwell on the petty issues. We need to take the big issues and we need to start fixing just the basics. We want to build these monuments. No, let's fix the basics. Let's get the flow running and going, and then I think we'll be on a positive trajectory.
100%.
Teresa?
Hi. Yeah, I'm going to be on the positive side, like Mr. van der Venter, and say that for me, the positive of the market, and if you speak to small farmers especially, it's accessible, easily accessible to all, whether you bring in 10 boxes or whether you bring in 10 links of, be it whatever fresh produce. Then on the other side, let's take the buyers. If you go to a market let's go on a Friday, and you'll be shocked to see how many women, small entrepreneurs, that buys to survive on and can feed their kids, their families. And so the markets is developing. The positive about it, there are so many entrepreneurs that's being developed by the market. No other industry is doing that. You can go anywhere in South Africa or in the world. It's not happening. So that is a huge positive. Our social development in this country, when they talk about the BE levels or be it what in transformation, and that the market is the pillar to that. Really, it's wonderful if you go and see. Then I don't want to do the negative, we want to think positive. But yes, the market is not known to the municipality, the importance of the market. That's sad. That people sitting in political positions is not seeing the importance of the market. And the markets is being controlled politically. That we need to eradicate. That is for me the main thing. The market is a business and they should separate politics and the business side. And the minute we do that, we will have such good food security coming from the market side. So if we can fight for that, there's going to be, everything will be resolved around the markets.
100%.
Okay. No, I think also connecting to those two conversations, and Thokozani, I'm going to direct this question at you as well, but I think to a large extent, This is now typically the reason why we started this conversation. The physical issues on the market and the neglect and those type of things have been well recorded. Okay. But we had a side conversation earlier, and we need to understand what the challenges are that municipalities are now facing to get that backlog sorted. And maybe just a perspective in terms of how long it takes before we can start activating some remedies and those type of things, and what channels you need to go through, and maybe you can also tell us what politics you guys are facing when you get these things.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the politics one, you know.
You can
but
keep away from that
yeah,
if you need to. But.
No, but colleagues, I can respond, and I fully agree with the points being made. You know, I mean, firstly, you know, the issues of management. You can even have a good board, you know, but if you don't have solid management and talented people, you are in trouble. Because a board is not management. You're just a governing authority, you know. So at the Joburg market, we've had our share fair in terms of, the challenges, but again, the board is trying to stabilize the market. I mean, one of the critical, vacancies when we came in was the chief financial officer. I mean, our turnover is 8.6 billion annually. So you need to have someone, well-talented, the CA, who understand the market as a business, who should be looking after your public purse. And I'm glad to say within a very short period of time, we are filling that position. We went out to the market to expect, we advertised. So we will be appointing a very competent, CFO, to look after that public purse. And again, we've got a very aggressive CapEx program in terms of what we want to do, over the next 3 financial years, it's 1.5 billion in terms of fixing the market and expanding the market. So really, we do have an acting CEO. We are addressing that particular issue as well, so that we can have a permanent, accountable, accounting officer. So I fully agree. The issues of, management is very important. If you want to stabilize any organization, you need proper management. So I think at the Joburg market, we are addressing the issue of retaining experienced colleagues. Today I was supposed to be joined by Charles Hamilton. Charles, I think most of you knows him. He has been with the market for 22 years, well-experienced guy. He was supposed to go on retirement next month. We have asked Charles to stay, because we need him. The market needs him, so we are retaining him at least again, for our term as the board, because we are appointed for 3 years. So we've asked him to stay with us, because we need someone like him so that we can deal with these particular issues. So I think from our side, really, we are addressing those issues, and we've got the full support of the shareholder, which is the city of Johannesburg, right? And there's very less political interference in terms of this current administration, I must be honest. The MMC and the executive mayor, both publicly and privately, have said to us, we're not going to interfere with the business of the board. You guys must go in and then do what you need to do in terms of the Municipal Systems Act, because that governs us, the Companies Act, and obviously the board charter. And what we have, what we call the shareholder compact between the entity and the city of Joburg. So I think we are addressing those issues. Again, issues of safety and security, very important as well. They might be seen as soft issues, but I'm really liking this conversation because I want to hear these things. I can tell you personally what I said to the colleagues, a very small thing that we'll be doing on the 29th of June, next month. You are all invited. We want to clean the market. I said to the board ourselves, we must go and clean the market. The executive mayor must come, but we're doing it a bit differently. Then I said, the city has what now they call RCBT, where basically now we can bring other city entities to help us. I spoke to the board chairperson of JRA, the Johannesburg Roads Agency. Same issue. I said, how do we have potholes in the market? Really? You drive in there, there's a pothole, and then there is a city entity that is supposed to address this issue. So on the 29th, JRA will be there. They will be filling all the potholes, and then we are getting into an agreement with them. They will resurface some of the internal roads, right? And then basic stuff, road markings as well. It's not complicated, colleagues. And once you start turning this thing around, people will have confidence. Then issues of security as well. We are dealing with those particular issues. We've been reviewing the service providers, that are currently on site. Because with the Joburg markets, and I can't speak about the other markets, I've said to the colleagues, money is not the issue, to be honest. You know, we do have money. We are not bankrupt. I was saying to Vili earlier on, we are a cash cow to the city of Joburg. We are returning money to the city. We are giving money back to the city. So the city needs to treat us like a commercial entity, not just another municipal entity. And at least I must say the current administration, again, our MMC obviously is from Action SA, the mayor is from the DA, and I think they've got a different view in terms of how they look at these entities. They are very pro-business-like, and they do want, you know, the board to run this thing as a commercial entity. The board themselves, very important. You know, do we have competent people that are in the board as well? And I think they've done quite well to a certain extent. Obviously, I'm going to say that I'm part of the board. But we've said even the board must be held accountable as well from a performance point of view. So colleagues, we are really looking at all these particular issues, you know, and maybe later on, I will even share in terms of our capex. You know, I was saying to Vili earlier on as well, when you were showing me the announcement from the Tshwane Fresh Produce Market. In this current financial year, our capex, you know, it's sitting at 149 million. In fact, the team is unable to spend. Now, that's an issue again from a skills point of view. So as a board now, we are conducting what we call a skills audit so that we can understand, you know, our banana ripening facilities, they keep breaking down. Our cold rooms, they keep breaking down. We can't have that kind of a situation when money is not an issue. We need competent people to be able to assist us. So again, you know, the market hasn't been recapitalized for quite some time. So we've got about 25 hectares of land that now we'll be looking at. We'll be working with the JDA, the Johannesburg Development Agency. We've secured funds, you know, in terms of what we are looking at as well. So I think for me, colleagues, you know, I mean, this is the opportune time. And we're not here just to sell a good story. You know, it's not also going to be an easy thing. There were issues of corruption when we also came in. They're still there. These things are institutionalized, you know, but I think we've got the willingness, you know, to deal with those particular issues. I think the Joburg market has the opportunity now, you know, in terms of us turning it around and hopefully then the other markets. The other colleague who was supposed to join me today, it's Jan Moke. Some of you know Jan. Jan used to be the COO at some point, was the chairperson of the board. I'm working very closely with Jan as well. You know, we've sort of like, you know, restructured our committees. He is chairing what we call now the Strategy and Operations Committee because we really want to focus on the core business. You know, yes, we must do the other things, but we need to understand the core business as well. Myself, to be honest, I don't have much experience in the fresh produce market. So how do I work with the colleagues around me who are talented and who are well experienced, you know, and then we make it a point that we work as a team. And I really think we do have an opportunity to turn this market around. Hence, you know, when I saw the email, I was quite happy. I said I'll accept the invitation because we want these conversations. And this conversation mustn't end here. And I know we'll move towards the end. I want us to continue engaging, but be very clear in terms of the areas of collaborations and clear milestones so that we can hold each other accountable in terms of those. But we can't fail. I think the Joburg market in particular, it's too big to fail. We can't fail. And we do have the political support. I don't know for how long, because it is a coalition government, but we're hoping that, you know, it will hold. And the last thing, obviously, just again, to allow the board to exercise proper oversight. This time around, they've appointed the board for 3 years. So we really don't have, you know, an excuse. So we've got, you know, enough time to turn the market around so that when we leave, you know, we can leave it, you know, in good hands, to be honest. Thank you so much.
I must react. You now made so much music, I feel like dancing on the table.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really think, well, I can't speak on behalf of everybody, but since there's so many of my footprints on that market, I think from what I know about the industry, that board will have our full support if what you just told us is going to happen. You know, we've heard many talk shows, and I'm not saying that's what you've done. But please, if that's the direction we're going into, the others will follow. I'm dead sure. And that Johannesburg market can really become the icon again of our industry. And it may be the concerns that we have. If there's a turnaround strategy, the support you will definitely I think you will really have it. So, like you said, never waste a good crisis. Maybe you've reacted before we can say too loud that you are in the forefront and that you're going to rectify what is wrong. And it is true. This is not funny things. We don't want to buy build a new market.
Yeah.
It is there. All the players are there. We just ask for maintenance, security, hygiene, food safety, basic things, and then law and order. We must never forget that one of the main reasons why we sit with the commission system was the matter of trust. So many players, and when this was debated, did not trust each other. The farmers did not trust the market agents, vice versa, nor did the property owner trust the market agents again. And that's why you have the system where if every transaction still today is in the hands of the market authority. Everything is being recorded by a neutral party. It is a transaction between market agent and farmer. But the information sits here. So if there's any dispute or any whatever inquiry, a third party sits with all the information. And many of the complaints from farmers or from agents or from buyers gets to the market authority and they can solve it. And maybe it must be debated again. Are we still happy with the commission system as such? You want my vote, you have it. I still think it is the best system for the South African system and where we are. I don't think we must move into a system of buying and selling on a market floor. A lot of things will creep into the transactions that I don't think will be good for the industry at all. And then just another thing that you might hear is that people will argue, and I was on a mission to Europe and to America. The Minister of Agriculture at that time put us on this mission and say, over the world they say fresh produce markets are going down the drain. Yeah, some of them do, but for good reasons. You must remember that this is not Europe and this is not America. It's a sophisticated system that has taken over. Where will you have an informal sector that's 60% of the Los Angeles market, as an example? No, man, the chain stores there are massive. They're 80% of the fresh produce trade and bigger in some of those countries. So yeah, they did move off the markets, but yet some of the markets are still very strong markets. I think Rungies is still a good example of a very strong market. And then some 3 years ago, I was at the opening of the Philippi new wholesale market, as they call it. Hell, what a pleasure it was to be there. Brand new, all the things that we dream about was present on that market. So don't come and say the time for fresh produce markets as such is over. That's nonsense. This is different. And also for that reason of the upcoming farmers, and you have this massive informal trade, which both are the realities of South Africa. And ask me, being in 14 other African countries where Freshmark had branches, what a battle. What is the price of potatoes in Malawi? You just don't know. What at best happens is they work out a sort of a formula. This is the price of South Africa on the Johannesburg market at the transport, and that's now suddenly the price of potatoes in Malawi. But that's a false price. It's false in Angola. It's false. Botswana is better, but so you can carry on. I can tell you lots of stories. The industry, the fresh produce industry, is crippled. I would make a statement and say in Africa, without fresh produce markets. Finish and klaar.
Fantastic.
Not even Africa, in the whole world. It's the only place where the farmers can stand up against the chain stores. It's at the market, because there is a different price mechanism. And that's very, very important. And that's the only place where a small farmer can start. If his quality is right and his package is right, he'll compete with the biggest farmers in there.
So true.
And that's very, very important.
And it also allows for some supply chain agility. If you think to COVID and all those onions and things that had to be plowed back into the fields because they couldn't reach the chain stores. I mean, to a large extent, that fresh produce market gives us some agility, or as an intermediary to challenge it wherever, or channel it wherever. Yep.
Yeah, for that reason, we don't need something like a produce market that's been closed because of hygienic reasons, or because it's filthy.
Yeah.
We don't need that. Can't afford it.
Yeah, I would like, sorry, Lisa, ladies first. I just would like to, and I'm jumping in again, so forgive me. What you're referring to is price maker as opposed to price taker. And that is really an important principle. But there's a disclaimer in terms of looking at markets. We shouldn't look at markets as to what they are, but as to what they can be. And that is really important. And in terms of your comments, I would like to say, if you kick a dog long enough, it will eventually bite you. So that should not be the spirit in which we have these discussions. I like the fact that there's unconditional support, to which we will also, me as a regulator, will give unconditional support to all markets. And remember, we regulate the agents, but we have a massive responsibility to also protect them and to look after that occupation, because they fulfill such an important role. So, we need to work with you, stop pointing fingers and start talking to you about solutions and going forward. And let me just warn you, I don't think that's going to be an easy discussion. But we're at a point in time where we need to do that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Lisa.
I'm not part of the system, but I interview people often on their accessibility, and we've had the opportunity to visit the Johannesburg Fresh Produce Market and do a series of interviews with informal traders. First of all, on the interview side, I've had the opportunity to speak to Anton Vos from Subtropico and their battle to keep their products fresh and their vehicles entering the Tshwane produce market, and what they've had to do as a private sector to help their clients because of the maintenance issues. But I don't want to go to that. That's actually what I wanted to say, and then Francois came in first. So I didn't have to repeat everything, and you did some work. Just on the interviews we had with the smaller role players, that was one thing that came out, and I wonder, that was like 2 years ago, we went to the fresh produce market before COVID, thinking about the petrol and diesel price and the taxi fees. Those years, the big issue was, it's so far to travel to buy my little bag. By the time I get back and sell my product on the street, wherever I do it, I make so much money. I'm in Vereniging. Can't you move the market closer to me? So that I have easier access, because I have to travel so early and so far to make my 150 Rand for the day. And that was quite something that I thought of, can't we have more markets, more accessible, and what happens now with the taxi fees? How much money are they making now? So that I thought I'll just share my view on the interviews we did at the market.
I think if I can contribute in terms of that insight, we are frequently faced with people saying that, okay, but they're going to try to put up a private market somewhere else, and that's exactly the point that we ignore. It's the fact that these markets are situated at the most appropriate place for the access to the informal trade. And this we can't steer away from. This is one of the reasons why we have to maintain the facilities where they are. We can try to move these things away, but it's going to change that cost aspect. And I've seen, and I don't know how many markets have done it recently, but I've seen some of the markets that has actually now created a facility for small traders around their space, so that it can actually enhance their access to the markets as well. And that I reckon will also be something that we can look at.
Yeah. No, I mean, at the Joburg market, we are also doing that. We've been spending money in building what we call the Mandela market, which is really for informal traders. But there are challenges as well there. Most of the informal traders, and again, issues of hygiene, tend to be non-South Africans, right? And that's the reality. So we will also be addressing that issue. And again, I'm not taking a political position of our MMC, who's Action SA, and I think we all know their positions. But we can't have, again, people who are undocumented, who are illegal, trading in that particular space, unfortunately. So those difficult conversations are going to happen. So for us, we're going to address that particular issue. The market, it's an enclave, real estate. So we can manage this thing very quickly, so we'll be dealing with that particular issue. The issue of, decentralized markets, it's not an easy one. But for the Joburg market, we just discovered as a new board that there's a facility that we owned in Soweto. It used to be a satellite market, and again, it was neglected. It's been currently being illegally occupied by an illegal person, and we've just moved. We've secured that particular property. So we are looking at, but probably having a PPP kind of an arrangement, bringing on board a private partner, who can manage the thing, maybe a bit differently. Someone will say, is it commercially viable, right? Because I think that's the other thing. You might have conducted those interviews, but you might find that people will still drive past that market and they want to go to the Joburg market. So we need to be very careful in terms of how then do we make this thing to be commercially viable. But I can definitely say that we'll be looking at that one. It's about 5 hectare site that we currently own. It's right at the entrance of Soweto, so it's strategically located. It's something that we'll be looking at as well, but we don't want to do it as a market. We want to partner, with someone who can have a strong commercial case. There are calls in terms of other areas like your Diepsloot, so we'll be investigating what are the options. But, for us, we said, let's fix the market first. Let's stabilize this thing first, and then we can move to other things, something that I haven't shared, I was saying to Vili earlier on as well, we want, and I hope as an industry we can still work together, whether we eventually move towards you guys you call smart farming, agri-tech. From our side, we want to also move the market, into, alternative energy sources, right? That's one thing that we want to do, and we've got funding for that now. We want to just do something very basic, put solar panels on top of the halls. We're spending about 57 million paying City Power, and they still give us load shedding, by the way, on an annual basis. That's what we're spending. We've got a gen farm there. You colleagues, know, we've got a gen farm. So we're spending quite a lot on diesel, which is also not good for the climate. We're banning diesel. The guys, even now, they're planning to buy, 2 generators at 25 million. So does it make sense? It doesn't make sense. The city now just had their energy Indaba where they want to procure 500 megawatts of electricity from IPPs. And I've jumped onto that particular opportunity with the board. I said, pilot it in the Joburg market. Let's start with the Joburg market. In the next 3 years, we can move the market off the grid completely, right? But while we're still dealing with those issues, then we said with City Power, can you start, not load shedding us, because we are a national key point. We are not designated, but we are.
Sure.
So we can't be suffering from load shedding, then we get hit by claims, from the agents and everything else. So we are in discussion now with City Power to deal with, the energy crisis. And then secondly, we've got 2 substations. We are only, linked to one. So we are looking for a ring feed, as well, to say when there are cable theft in terms of this other power station, can you supply us, from the alternative one as well? So in the immediate, that's what we're looking at. And then in the next 3 years, hopefully, we'll manage to move the market off the grid. So I think for us, we are saying let's stabilize, the core business first, and then we'll also deal with the issues. You'll find that maybe today I'm not even going to talk much about transformation, because I think it's a given. It will happen. We'll have to also say, how do we open up the market? The other challenge, even when you talk about, transformation and opening up the markets, we've got limited trading spaces, right? So how far can you push this thing in terms of bringing in, new, BEE market agents? But again, something that's going to be a bit more sustainable again. Not those kind of interventions where people just come in and then they fail, because they thought that it's an easy way of making money as well. So I think, colleagues, we are really having these conversations, and we are very mindful, but we are also trying to say, what are our priorities, at least for the first year. When we came in, we had what we call our 100 days action plan to say, can we just stabilize the market? Issues of maintenance for us, was very key, So we are saying, okay, after dealing with those kind of critical issues, then how do we move and then address, some of, I won't say peripheral issues, but issues that for now we can say they are secondary issues. The stakeholders, yourself as industry, you won't trust us if we can't do the basics. Let's first do the basics and let's earn your trust and then show you that we mean serious business. So for me, I hear the issues of satellite markets. It's something that can be looked at later on. Let's just fix the market first.
100%.
Yeah, baby steps.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
You made a point of not or being a national key point, and I think this is something that I would also put out as a question. The part of the discussion is here is how do we elevate your plea? How do we raise the fresh produce market to become a pivotal point within Parliament, within decision making, so that you actually raise it outside just of the responsibility and the control of the municipalities as well, but to get insight into the national environment in terms of the importance of that. And I'm not sure, just in terms of placing us out there on the markets, what information do you have available just to show scale?
Okay, great, thanks. I think that's a crucial point, and something that the fresh produce industry can really show off. So, I mean, from a gross production value perspective, if you go to the GDP figures and you see what the value of vegetable production in South Africa was in 2020, so this is 2020 figures, it's just short of 22 billion rand. And I think potatoes is by far the largest share of this, about 37%. And when you relate it to global circumstances like what's happening in the Ukraine and Russia, I mean, given the huge surge in staple food costs, I think something like vegetables will start playing a crucial role in covering the nutritional needs of the food insecure in South Africa. So I think that's also a story that needs to be punted. We're much less exposed to international turbulations with vegetables than we would have than we are in terms of grains and oil seeds. So I don't know if that covers your question, Billy, but or your point, but
Your 22 billion, sorry, is what?
Gross production value. So that's out of the GDP figures that they would use to consolidate agri GDP.
Okay, the turnover of the markets, I think altogether must be over 20 billion.
Yeah, but I think that speaks to the point of which data sources do you use? Who do you include? Who do you exclude? Franz and I had a discussion on that before we started. So I'm comfortable that we debate that figure. It reinforces the point that we need a solid baseline to start off with in terms of what does the industry contribute, and then work from there. But it must
be much more if you think about exports, product that's going to processing, the chain stores, which is at least 20% of that figure that you can add, etc., etc. But in any case, to all of you who have to report something, the one thing is, this is not a bankrupt.
No, by no means.
So we're not asking the government or whoever for any money. We can stand on our own feet. If the money is just well managed, then if I'm not wrong, your gross income from the turnover you've mentioned is about 430 million. That sounds like money to me.
No, it is.
And surely with 430 million, there must be money for maintenance, and there must be money for cleaning up, etc., etc., etc. So that's the fortunate position that this industry is in, is that not begging anywhere for money. I will in fact look in ABSA's eyes and say, you should consider to invest in this industry.
So we've spoken a lot about the sort of physical issues of the markets, like potholes and lack of maintenance. Can someone just elaborate perhaps on the processing issues, for example? So is that a problem with the markets, like the way that the actual market is run in terms of documentation and that sort of...
You're referring to the administration?
Yes.
And I think maybe more to the point as well. The question would be is how do we understand how the process? We've spoken about yourself as board to the municipality itself, but how does this relate to let's call it the chain of command? And in terms of administration, what is the responsibility that you have to have in terms of your feedback to your municipality as well?
Look, maybe let's start with the payment issues, from the market. I'm told, and it's a pity that Charles is not here, that at some point Joburg Market used to process the payments or facilitate the payment processes within a very short period of time, like literally the following day. Now it looks like it takes more than 2 days, kind of. So it seems as if there are challenges there as well. It's something that I know management is looking at, but I'm not 100% sure. But I've had a discussion with Charles around that. So it's something that we definitely want to fix as well. But can I also be a bit more controversial? Because I think I've been taking quite a lot of accountability in terms of our challenges and also just sharing what we're trying to do. And I'm going to look at my colleagues at IMASA as well, to say, when we say it's the whole ecosystem, I think we already mean it. Because remember, and I'm told, and colleagues, as I'm saying, maybe I'm being a bit controversial here, where I'm told that sometimes there are some of the players that will also misbehave, will communicate to the farmers the wrong information. If something goes wrong, with their stock, they'll say, no, it's the market. It's not us. And I know, again, we've also done our updated bylaws as well. I'm told that at some point, there was some sort of a governance model in the market to say when someone had a complaint, maybe against, the agent or whatever, then there was a mechanism to resolve, some of those issues. And it's something that I think we must look at as well. We need to revisit that. Because it wouldn't be fair if then something happens, on the floor, under the watch of the market agent. And then the market agent says, no, it's the Joburg market. It's those people that are incompetent, their system doesn't work. I think, again, let's have those honest discussions, When I hear about these private sector-led markets, I think there was one in Midrand, and we know what has happened. There are talks about one next to the Rand Airport. At some point it was Nazareth, the Aratin area. And I said to the colleagues, let's just fix the business. If we fix the market, I don't think that thing has a chance. But I don't have any issue with it. I'm an entrepreneur myself. I believe, in a market system.
Yeah.
And it's correct for the private sector. If these markets collapses, someone will see a gap in the market and then they'll come in. So for me, I think fundamentally we don't have any issue with that. The way how we're going to deal with that particular issue, it's by fixing the market and working with the industry, to say this is in the best interest of our country. And we really look at the Joburg market as a national asset, as we've said. It's not just for the city of Johannesburg. It's a national asset and plays a very important role in terms of the SADC region in particular as well.
Yep.
So I think, when we talk about those kind of administration, let's look at the ecosystem, not Joburg market as the entity. What are the agents also doing on the trading floor as well?
Right.
Do we have people, whether it's one or two, who are misbehaving? At some point, I'm not saying be defensive or I'm not accusing you guys. I'm told others say, no, we can do this deal outside of this particular ecosystem. There are those kind of issues as well that we are being told. So I think all of us need to behave in a very ethical manner as well. Let's hold Joburg market accountable or any other fresh produce market, but all the other stakeholders as well.
Yeah.
Right? So for me, I think that conversation needs to be broadened up a bit as well. It's all the players in the ecosystem.
Okay.
Just the answer on there was this commission for fresh produce markets, which was then, when privatization, there was a white paper on privatization and deregulation in the beginning of the 90s, and this commission came to an end, and that's how, when I made the jump to Johannesburg market, that's history now. But there was this body reporting straight to the Minister of Agriculture, where all issues that the role players could not solve themselves was referred to. But if you ask me honestly, when it comes to, because I have some insight in the agents, property agents, they rule themselves, and that's what the case should be with the market agents. If they're proud of what they're doing and they want to keep their name high, they should have their own code of ethics, and I think is it not the government gazette still? Yeah.
I'll talk to that now.
Okay, you will answer that now. So I don't think we need another body. They must rule and regulate themselves.
I agree that, because it's so easy with agents, working on behalf of farmers or like estate agents, but we are very well regulated, sometimes over-regulated, to be honest. If you compare us to exports, for instance. So we have APAC that audit us monthly. So that is on the side of farmers' money being regulated and protected. And then we've got our own internal, as agencies, we've got our own internal processes as well. So should a farmer not be happy at any point, he or she can contact APAC or directly to the directors of the agencies, and then we must take steps. So we have hearings, we have disciplinaries. Those things are all in place. I just wanted to answer on the models, depending on the model of the markets, like Tshwane market, all our funds or the income goes to the city, most of it, and that is where we have a problem, because we're saying at least, don't give us, we're getting at the moment, if we're lucky, a 5% of our total income to be reinvested in the markets, and that's not doing anything to maintenance. Then we have Johannesburg, it's corporatized, so that's worked differently. Then you have Cape Town, that's privatized. So it's all different ways, but just talking on the municipal markets, we feel that the money should be more ring-fenced so that more of the money is reinvested into the market.
ring-fenced.
And maybe
So
to
that's
jump,
what we
yeah.
are busy with. To be honest, we're in a legal process with the municipality in Tshwane right now.
Yeah.
It must be out there, the news, and that is why we got suddenly 18 million came out of nowhere.
But if I may add, with us, I mean, in the last financial year, I think we gave the city about 110 million of our profit. So the conversation now that is happening with the city is to say, at least for the next 3 years, we would like to keep that net profit so that we reinvest it, back to the market. And already there is political support for that. Our MMC is in full support. So now we just need to convince the MMC for finance, because you have different MMCs. So we report to the MMC for economic development. So obviously, like even at national government, the Minister of Finance always want something that is coming into the public purse. So because then, if they were expecting us to give them 150 million this year, and we suddenly say to them, no, sorry, we're not going to give it back to you now, we need it. But already the MMC is in support. So even with us, that's where we're moving. We want to retain, all the financial resources and the income that we generate as a market, so that we can reinvest back in the city. And 3 weeks back, I also facilitated a meeting with National Treasury in my personal capacity. I do work with National Treasury, where National Treasury, there are other funds, there are grants that are meant for infrastructure. There's one that is called the BFI. So we are working with National Treasury so that we can even get extra funding, in terms of the expansion plans that we want to undertake, as well as the renewable energy projects. Because there's also, again, quite a lot of money out there, for these kind of initiatives. And I think this is what the board is also bringing, to say how do we sort of assist, the entity to leverage other funding. I still say, and I know APSA, is also here, but I don't think funding is a key issue in this country, especially for us, I mean, as we've pointed out. In any business, I would say one of the key metrics, it's what we call, cash in the bank. Right now, we are sitting with some significant funds in our own account, as we speak today, more than 350 million. So hence I said, with us, I don't think it's a funding issue. It was lack of strategy, it's issues of capacity, and obviously the right political support, that we need. Our capex at the Joburg market has been done in a piecemeal. We haven't had a proper plan to say, how do we spend our money in the next 3 years? And one of the initiatives that Jan and Charles now, they are driving, those colleagues who were at the market around 2010, there was a good concept called the market of the future that was developed by the colleagues who were there. Great concept, to be honest, in terms of saying, how do we move the market forward? But with the previous administration, good in conceptualizing things, poor in implementation. And again, we have said to the colleagues, there were even detailed designs that were done. I said, colleagues, we're not politicians. There was good work that was done. Let's take this thing and just go and implement it. So this is where now we are moving with JDA, in terms of saying, we have been able to secure funds. So again, but with Ekurhuleni, if I may just bring a different, scenario. In Ekurhuleni, again, the market sits within the administration, right? Within the Department of Economic Development. But what I've seen there, I think the department is doing quite well in terms of at least maintaining and investing in that market. It might be a bit smaller, but I think, again, having a different institutional arrangement where the market is part of the administration, I think Ekurhuleni, I'm getting a sense that it's not that bad, to be honest. I know in Tshwane, yes, definitely there were challenges. Some of the farmers were telling us that now they're not even sending their produce there, they are bringing them directly to the Joburg market. Is that good for us? Not really. Because
puts
then
more pressure on your resources.
Yes, and then there's oversupply, as well. So for us, we also want to see the other markets, performing quite well. We have offered to the MMC in Tshwane. He's also an Action SA MMC. Myself and Membayan, we've worked with him in other different capacities, where we really want to work together with the Tshwane market and see how we can also collaborate and help that market as well.
So, interesting numbers I'm hearing. Turnover of 8.5 billion.
No, 8.6.
8.6 billion. Your spend last year was 150 million.
On CapEx.
Yeah.
For this current financial year ending next week.
Okay, and you are retaining another 100 million to do basically a similar thing. So you reserving 250 million rands worth of money to support CapEx on a turnover of 8.6 billion.
Yeah.
Where are we with Tshwane with 18 million on a turnover of?
Well, we last year, I think if we got 10 million, we were lucky. So I'm just now making quick calculations. If Joburg can secure that amount, we should at least have 50% of that. Because our turnover is more or less, we just under the 50%.
Yeah.
So just hearing that,
Yeah.
so the 18 million that they're boasting about, well, we're having a meeting with the MMC tomorrow, actually, with Andre Leroux.
Yeah.
So we will definitely bring that up because 18 million is like really a drop in the ocean.
100%.
Sorry.
We're thankful, but
Yeah,
it's a drop in the ocean.
Yes, but we got to tell them, I mean, there's so much wrong, we need so much more, and there is more available, definitely.
But I think for me, the other conversation that you need to have with the MMC, because you said, I mean, this is not about Joburg markets, it's about fresh produce markets. You know, I mean, what we wanted to also propose to the MMC, it's for them to look at the current institutional arrangement, where we were saying maybe they need to take the market outside of the administration.
Yeah.
Because if the market is within the administration, you'd have serious limitations, right?
Politics.
You can't even procure toilet paper, you know, or get a plumber to come and fix something, you know, immediately. Now in Tshwane, they've got this other entity called the Tshwane Economic Development Agency, TIDA, right? So, you know, I'm not saying it's the best thing, but they don't have to go and try and create a new entity. So in the interim, they can move the market and place it there, give it an institutional home, because TIDA is set up as a company, right? So you can do quite a lot there. You know, I'm not saying that, you know, you should, but I think when you're looking for real solutions, you must also ask him and say, MMC, but is this thing, you know, correctly placed in terms of the administration?
Sure.
You know, can you really attract talent? I mean, we spoke about, you know, the big resource that we are appointing, the CFO. You know, I mean, it's public knowledge. You know, I mean, our CFO, in terms of the salary that we've advertised, and it's not even the top notch, it's 1.9 million. So we can really attract someone who's talented. And one of the requirements is that you must be a CASA. So, you know, I don't know who's managing their budgets there. I'm sure it's some junior financial manager person, right? One of the things that we'll be putting on the scorecard of our CFO is for them to develop what we call a financial sustainability model. Because, you know, with the Joburg fresh produce market, we haven't even tapped into other commercial opportunities. When you've got 14,000 people coming through your gate every day, what more can you do?
Yeah, sure.
Right? So those are the, you know, kind of skills that you want to attract. But if you've got junior people who are just typical municipal officials, I used to work for municipalities. I'm sorry, some of the guys are lazy. They don't want to take risk in their performance contract. They want to play safe. You know, I mean, even internally, we've been having issues around standards, right, as well. You know, what are the turnaround times? So if you are sitting in an administration, very unionized, set up, you know, no one really cares about high performance, you can't attract the best talent, you will have challenges, to be honest. You know, I'm not saying we are better off, but I think, again, we've got a chance. We've got a chance to turn the Joburg market around, because the institutional arrangement allow us, you know, to do
I
that.
agree fully with you. The main, and Francois touched on that, management. It's unbelievable how that management, nobody works as a team. Really. On Tshwane market, you can walk in at any time. If you have 50% of the staff present, it's wonderful. It's a great day.
Sure.
That's how bad it is. People, every director or assistant director has a PA. I always ask them, what is your PA doing? because we're not getting correspondence, we're not getting responses, and etc. So to answer also your question on the TEDA, 2 months back I invited, they were on the market with Agbus and we walked the market. They were shocked. They couldn't believe what Tshwane market looked like. But I invited without market management knowing, because I'm the chairperson of IMASA on the market. So without them knowing, I invited them and we walked the market in the morning. These people were like shocked beyond words. So TEDA is very much prepared to, step in. But once again, we don't have market management working with us. But that's a problem that, because it belongs to the municipality, they just take transfers and they're not held accountable, and, so we sit with that problem.
I think that is, let's call it in my mind, the main reason why I needed this type of conversation. Because for me, it can't be just pure ignorance. It can't be just pure neglect. There must be something in terms of the structure that doesn't allow management to manage. Or doesn't give the mandate properly, or doesn't put accountability in the right spot. So this is for me the important factor, is to be able to unpack that again, that chain of command, to understand why market management is not market managing. Why is it being left that way? Why is the revenue being earned? Where does the money get transferred to, and why doesn't the money get reserved for maintenance? Those type of things, in my mind, is a structural issue. And my concern is that where a lot of people has taken over facilities from previous, let's call it governance and those type of things, there's no proper handover process to give proper instructions to members. And again, I'm concerned when we have these discussions that we are putting people on the spot that are not really the culprits in the story, and that we're not really unlocking the real connections that needs to be made. Nobody's going to earn money from an asset and just see it deteriorate if they have got the ability to fix it.
I would like to say something that we must be very careful if we start going to the direction of talking about regulation. As a regulator, allow me the following. I think, first and foremost, Africa is not for sissies. That we need to know. If you are a regulator, it's like being a referee of a rugby game. If you are not a good referee, you're going to have a bad game. But if you over-regulate, there's going to be no flow. So we must be very careful to over-regulate. And a few things, it's legislated that farmers must be paid within 5 working days. Legislated. For every sale. That's something that I regulate. And that's not negotiable. So any farmer that makes use of the aggregated services of an agent, and the agents, I would like to say it's the art of being a salesman. It's an art to work on behalf of a farmer to get the best price. It's an art, and let's acknowledge that. So for us to regulate, we do that. We do that. I'm probably grumpy as hell, and I should be, because that's the work I do. But we do that with great passion in the interest of the industry, interest of farmers, to make sure that there's ethical, economic focus. And then enhancement. And just a word of caution, if there's any unethical behavior, and that has unfortunately been the case in the industry, we will take out those agencies and they will not be allowed to operate. We will close them down. Here's an interesting fact for people who don't know. I've got a criminal act which I regulate. So we can even put people in jail, and if people are being unethical, fraudulent, we will put them in jail. And that is the extent of how we are trying to look at a very beautiful industry. We need to protect a beautiful industry at all costs. So just a final comment. The agents at markets are well regulated. I think they might be over-regulated in certain aspects, but that is all done, and APAC is a creature of statute. That means we've got a very specific and defined role, and that is a role that we inherit from the Minister of Agriculture, and it's currently being reviewed. So just be careful. If we start going the regulation route for market authorities, we must not over-regulate. Be very careful of that.
I fully agree, and I think if there's one little block that we can tick today, in my opinion, it's the APEC block. We can tick it. I think, thanks, the gods must be crazy, but through all of this, that's the one thing that kept the whole system going. It's the backbone still today. That we haven't ended up in cowboy world. This thing about money, just on a lighter note. So one day I was already 2 years not on the market, and the Sabros there in the cold room, they needed dramatic repairs, and now there was no money, the normal story. So they called us and me, and it was some of the role players, and they were now, this was now heated, they were now ready for a big fight. And the city then sent some junior to come and cool us down. And while I was there, I said, but we left the money with 32 million at that stage in the bank. How can there not be no money? So this youngster, they've sent a junior guy, he came with just not with a laptop, books. He paid for the books, and he said, listen, the money is here, but the cash is gone.
So I think we've taken a lot of time to speak about the various issues, and I think we're very happy to have Thokozani here from Joburg Market. It's really exciting, the steps that the market is taking to improve the market. But I would just like to focus a bit on the private sector's involvement in all of this. So in other words, how the private sector can help improve markets, so private-public collaborations that are necessary to improve the market for the sake of everyone. Is there anyone who wants to start off? Anyone who has any idea?
Maybe just to start, because you've mentioned the skills audit that you had. And I think to a large extent, this is probably the type of extension that we can bring from the private sector. Potato South Africa works on a committee basis. Okay, so our farmers are producers, are part and parcel of our decision-making structure. Although we are operating as a separate entity, we use the inputs that they have in terms of a type of a roundtable situation to give us the type of insight that you showed. I think you also come from a consultation background as well. So from my point of view, what I think the private sector can bring to these municipalities is to offer the skills and maybe to offer the consultation function for these conversations to be packaged properly. One of the biggest things that I had to do when I started here, and we are in the industry for quite a long time, is just to again unpack the SOPs and to map it properly, so that we can see that there's linkages between the handovers of processes as well. These type of things we've got a lot of private sector professionals on. And I think that is where we can really bring a contribution to the table.
Yeah, and I think you must remember that the agents on the markets, they are private sector. Yeah, every single one of them.
Yeah.
And they probably have the best insight in terms of what the mechanics are that needs to be addressed, because they operate with it on a daily basis.
I think also, we need to maybe look at other departments like Fransha, you've always been part of the NMC when we used to have meetings regarding Section 14, etc. So if we're looking at transformation, like you touched on it, and we were looking at like just having like, what would you call it, like in different areas, you know, the informal settlements and that. The NMC, we always had discussions around logistics, for instance. Like you can have these, you know, community people coming together and forming community group, and then you get maybe one buyer going to the market, and NMC, what's it,
NAMC.
NAMC, that's right, National Agriculture Marketing Council. So then they provide the logistics for it, and you can have one buyer going for 10 entrepreneurs, right? Then they can negotiate pallet prices. So those is all discussion that they had years back, but it was never followed up. So then you have one truck coming or two trucks bringing it to one central point, and then they can distribute it like that. So those are the things that we must maybe look at to get those departments involved as well. And DAF, I mean, they were part of our Project Rebirth, where you were referring to the Springs Market. Is actually, Springs Market is one of the results of Project Rebirth, that the market is looking better.
Yeah.
But that also fell along the way. So those are things that we can revive, you know, with the different departments, with private sector.
I've been burning to say this, if I may. Also, the way we use language to portray some issues. We're talking about informal traders, the guys at the robots in the stop streets. They're probably the best salespeople in the world, because if they catch your eye, you're in trouble. From APAC, we've been we've been calling them movable retailers. Right. So please take the point further. If we're talking about so-called small-scale farmers and upcoming farmers, I hate those words. We should start calling them commercial farmers. Anybody who's farming is a commercial farmer. He might be a small commercial farmer. But what is it that we need in South Africa? We need them to grow into medium to large-scale farmers. So if you label somebody, it's what they will remain for probably the rest of their lives. So even if we speak, and I'm looking at the media today, we need to put out this message. We've got to hammer the message about markets, and we've got to keep on. And if we're good at that, then we must double it and do more, because we need to protect this industry at all costs. So if we talk about inclusivity, let's call the people the right name, because we want to grow them into those large commercial farmers.
Yeah. Janine, I know you're asking the colleagues in terms of, where do they see themselves contributing, but I've got, one or two asks from my side.
Sure.
I think from a data point of view and industry insights, that sits with the industry. Doesn't sit with the fresh produce market. I was going through your website, you do your own reports and everything else. I think that becomes quite useful, if then it is shared with, fresh produce markets. These are the trends in the industry, this is what's happening, and. So I think there is room for improvement, because we don't collect that kind of data from our side, right? So I'm seeing some collaboration there, definitely, in terms of, the industry sharing data and insight, with the fresh produce market, so that we can also know in terms of what's happening, and then how do we reposition ourselves to respond, to those particular ones. I do agree, the issues around skills, capacity building, that would be quite, an area to collaborate. But while I still have the platform, there is another, more social initiative that we've started as well. We're still calling it, other colleagues are not quite sure whether we should call it. I'm calling it a food bank. Basically, actually, even on June 16, we selected a youth center, where they are supporting 530 kids, with a hot meal on a daily basis, where we went and donated food, and we worked with our partners. We can contribute so much as the market. You know, and I think when we donated that, when we made the delivery, you know, the manager for the center said, you know, this food is going to last us for 2 weeks, right? So, which is a great thing, you know. I mean, it's not the whole month, but you know, it's for 2 weeks. So we also want to make these fresh produce markets, you know, good corporate citizens. You know, we live within communities. You know, and again, 2 weeks back, I was driving and I had the deputy governor of the Reserve Bank saying South Africa is more likely to face another riot in terms of unrest because people are struggling, right? So how do we, you know, move beyond our own comfort space, you know, and just make that small contribution? You know, we're not going to change the world, you know, but we can make a small contribution. So for us, I think I'm reaching out to say we'd like to collaborate, you know, with the industry around those particular initiatives. On the 9th of August, we'll be doing something similar. You know, we're looking at, you know, a center that is helping abused women, and then we want to go and donate there as well with our partners, you know. So that we even use these public holidays, you know, differently. When politicians are just celebrating them as political activities, you know, we must make a difference. You know, we're so blessed, you know, we go to bed with a decent meal and everything else. So how do we give back, you know, to these communities as well? So I think it would be great, you know, if we can have those kind of collaborations, you know, where, you know, I mean, we've got the infrastructure, you know, we're able to work with the social department, you know, to identify these registered centers, you know, the kind of impact and everything else. You know, so for me, that's an ask to say, you know, will the industry be keen, you know, to participate? I think I've already shared an open invitation for the 29th of June to say, come, let's clean the markets together. It's your market as well. You know, let's make it a bit significant to say it's not only Joburg markets and the board and the city, but it's also the industry players as well. We'll provide all the equipment and everything else. We are working with Pick It Up. You know, I've been on their case as well. We're paying them about 10 million, you know, they're supposed to be collecting waste and sometimes they don't. But we're paying you 12 million in fact, not even 10. You know, but we don't get any value, you know. So I think it would be great again, you know, and then we're sending that positive message, you know, to the stakeholders that we are working together and we are going to turn this market around. So for me, I think it's those ones as well. You know, I mean, Charles can be in touch with you, you know, in terms of saying how do we do that. I used to work in government, so I think I'm still stuck in MOU sometimes to say let's sign an MOU, but with a clear implementation plan. We're doing the same thing with Agro SA as well, you know, so that at least we can hold each other accountable to something, to say, look at our levels. We can't sign these kind of things and not implement them, you know, because it's also about our reputations, it's also about our country. You know, I think, again, a conversation around getting industry support, you know, to have Joburg markets, you know, classified as a national key point. It's something that we are looking at. You know, when that fire happened, it's that we're just so fortunate that, you know, the EMS guys at the fire department reacted very quickly, to be honest. You know, we all know the challenges. Sometimes they bring, you know, these firefighters, the fire trucks without water. I mean, it could have been that kind of, you know, a situation. You know, so for us, we can't have that. And again, when the July unrest happened last year, we were not part of the board. Not too far from the markets, there are informal settlements. You know, if that market was attacked and looted, you know, that will have had serious issues from, you know, a food security point of view as well. So again, the city is already entertaining this kind of an idea where we are saying we need to engage, you know, so if we can have that support from industry as well, you know, and other stakeholders, I think again it's an area where we can collaborate and it should not be a difficult one, to be honest.
Thokozani, I've got my chairman sitting next to me, and I want to, from the potato industry side, give you the commitment in terms of the food bank. We will definitely join hands with you on that one.
Yeah.
I think there was a few planning sessions in our board this past year that also might mention of the fact that we need to be able to react to situations like what happened in KZN. We've got producers that are committed, that are ready to have material available for us to be able to support and distribute as well. So I think from the potato side, the commitment is there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a very exciting opportunity and for us to basically contribute to that space as well.
You know, just on that food bank, we started at Freshmark, it was 2-3 years ago. And really I was so surprised that we're really living in a wonderful country. We ask suppliers when they deliver, if there's anything, maybe it's not according to our specs and whatever, put it on the truck and we will make sure that it's, yes. It's just unbelievable what came in as donations.
Yeah.
Help. People have good hearts in this country.
Yes, they do. We've seen it a lot during the droughts.
Sure.
Yeah.
Everybody is not spitting fire.
No, exactly. Exactly.
There are some of them, but so be it.
There'll always be those ones. Yeah. Do you want to say something?
Doesn't the milk have cleaners? Why is the milk dirty? I'm sorry.
Why are some of the streets dirty? Good question.
I mean, and why is there one day being planned for a cleaning? Shouldn't the market be cleaned twice a day, 3 times a day?
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, sorry for asking this.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a culture thing as well. Most of the colleagues were also not being held accountable. You know, because we have asked those questions, you know, to our executive manager responsible for operations. I said, you've got the biggest staff complement. Why are these people not, you know, just doing their job? You know, but again, I think as I'm saying, you know, it's a culture thing. You know, I mean, in government, people just don't take their jobs quite seriously. I'm sorry to say that, you know. All that they're interested in, it's, you know, the paycheck at the end of the month. You know, so we are also addressing those kind of issues, you know, but again, as I said, we had to start with strategic issues. Because if we also then now be seen as a board, there is concern about whether the cleaner is doing, you know, his or her job, that's really not our responsibility. That's the accounting officer's responsibility. If you've got a CEO that knows what needs to be done and management, you shouldn't be worried about those issues, right? So, but we do find ourselves asking those kind of questions. But then we said we want to lead from the front so that we can see and be seen. You know, if we take brooms and go and sweep there and clean with them, they'll see that this board is different. And this board means serious, you know, business. You know, when we go there, some of us will even just walk around, you know, to say, but why is it so filthy? And I'll ask them, did your night shift, you know, decided to stay away? They said, no, they were here. I said, they were here, really? You know, I mean, really, you know. So I think it's those kind of issues, you know, and maybe, you know, with us, they've been raising issues of cleaning equipment, so we've allocated budget for them. So they can't have excuses anymore. Right, but as I'm saying again, you know, I mean, for us, there is a role for Pick It Up as well, you know, to work with us. And personally, and I shouldn't be doing these kind of things, you know, I had to call the MD myself, you know, and say, you're going to work with us. You know, I mean, we are paying you, and we are a city-owned entity. We are a city-owned entity. So let's just work together. So I think it's really those kind of issues, and slowly people will change. You know, I mean, it's a change management process as well when you come in. Let's all agree, you know, I mean, things in this country have been done quite badly, right? There's evidence of that now. The Zondo Commission reports tells us what has been happening, right? But again, with the job market, I still say it's not that it's broken, but at some point it was neglected. So we can quickly just, you know, fix it and turn it around. And I think the team will come around. For the first time as well, I don't know whether the previous colleagues, you know, I mean, as a board, we even had to meet with the whole staff because we wanted to get the message across, share the vision with them, you know, but also say to them, we are a caring organization. Because there are also good people, you know, at the market that feel they've been marginalized as well, you know, by those ones who wanted to come in and do their own things at the market. You know, I can share with this meeting, you know, we've been spending about 7.5 million on people that have been suspended for the past 2 years. I said, but this is crazy. Will you do this if it's your own company? You don't do that.
Never.
You know, so it's either you charge them, right? Because if you are suspended, remember, it's just allegations against you. But we can't suspend you and you are at home for 2 years and we are paying you. And probably you're running your own small farm somewhere. Right? So those are the kind of issues, colleagues, sometimes that I think, you know, the industry might not be aware of. You know, there are very operational issues, but they impact the performance of the organization. But we are addressing those issues, you know, and as I said again, as soon as we stabilize from a management point of view, then the board can really look at strategic issues, you know. So I hope it answers you, but yeah, it's just that it's a culture thing. They just don't care, like literally, they just don't care. But there are also hardworking people at the market as well. I mean, we start trading at 5,
And
you know, in the morning.
It's a cultural issue, I mean, a corporate cultural issue that's being
Yeah.
you want to change.
Yes.
I would like to offer an input there. You can't manage a market sitting in an office. If you want to be at a market, you have to walk the floor every day. You know where you walk to? You walk to the back of the sections. You walk to the dirty areas. If you want to get to the truth, walk the floor.
Yeah.
We find too many people sitting in an office being very important. Why are agents so successful? They're absolutely on the cold face. That's where they work. That's where they feel the pain as well. So please don't manage a market from an office.
See, by Tukazani's dress code, you can see that he knows what the floor feels like.
And make no mistake, it's no joy in winter to be
No,
in the market.
definitely.
I think the other thing also is with the service providers that are appointed.
Yeah.
There are service providers that are being paid,
For doing nothing.
then they do nothing.
Nothing.
Like we've got in our vegetable hall, we've got a generator when electricity is down. It never works for, I think it's 8 years now.
Yeah.
But there's maintenance being paid, but
yeah.
no maintenance is being done.
Yeah.
So I asked the question to the management last week. I said, do you have a checklist? Who's doing a checklist on your service providers? Because sometime you've got to give a report, is the service provider doing the job or not? No, there's no checklist in place. So nobody's checking, is service provider X doing what they're being paid for? 250,000 a month for cleaning, but the dirt is laying all over. So who's getting the money? And then I said to them, somebody's got to take responsibility in market management. Who is the person that's checking the cleaning? Who's checking security? And shockingly, there's nothing in place.
But that brings me to the point that I've said is how is this process documented and do people know what the responsibilities are? From what you're saying, it's clear that there's no proper induction. And I think from a budgetary sign-off and those type of things, you know, just who's responsible for signing the piece of paper that authorizes these transactions? And at what space do they do that? So this is basic accounting principles. This is basic management principles. But if there's no foundation laid there, nobody's going to be able to refer to it.
I'll give you an example. I got pictures this morning. I sent it around. There's a section of our cold rooms, 13 rooms, 11 is cold rooms and 2 is warming rooms. It's locked down since January 2020. They locked it. They closed the gates. There's dirt laying all there where the gates is closed. The reason being that there was no service provider appointed to maintain those rooms. So they just closed it. So we got no access to the rooms. It's actually closed with gates, never been cleaned. Shocking. So this is the type of thing that we deal with.
And I think this is also where the media can come in, because
Hammer them.
exactly,
Yeah.
the media
It's food.
is tasked with, you know, keeping or holding government to account, but you know, we rely on public participation, so we need to be able to talk to the public about this, so that they
There's nothing wrong with that.
know that these are the issues that are going on, so that there's more pressure put
But
on
it's
government.
twofold, right? So it's talking about the issues, but also highlighting the importance of the industry, because I think that's often
Exactly.
undersold.
Yeah.
I would like to say something about why we, at the point point of what are we going to do?
You're going to have to shave a bit of a pitch there.
We're getting to the core of how are we going to address problems. So it's important to understand that running and operating a market is a constitutional mandate, a local market, local government market.
Yeah.
So there's a reference in the Constitution, but there's a very important principle, and I would like to read it to you. It says, by virtue of Section 156 sub 4, and you must please listen to this, the administration of a market is assigned to local government only if it can effectively perform and administer this function locally and has the required capacity to do so. So that begs the question, if it's no longer the situation, is this still valid? So as much as we are talking about how we need to ensure the survival of the markets and how we will take hands, we need to consider what will we be doing if there's no change. So let's be brutally honest, this must be a wake-up call for markets around the country. These formidable institutions that once were can no longer be what they are today. So if we are being very honest about the outcome of a discussion like this, we must also inform the people that are running markets that if you carry on the way that you will be, that you've done in the last couple of years, those markets will eventually die or be closed down. So everybody must take hands in the approach of going forward to say, what are we going to do about markets? We cannot afford markets to close down. That will further enhance your problem of where do you shop. So I sound a little negative about this, but let's be very honest and precise about what needs to happen here. We've got a responsibility to ensure that agents have a platform. If that platform is not working, that platform will disappear. But let's ask the question, can we afford that? We can't.
Sorry.
Yeah, we talked about it this morning after this meeting, and I mean, we're very glad to hear what Johannesburg Market they are going to do. But how do we get this sort of the message, and it's really open for discussion, to the next level and to the next level? Are we going to some other stage see the Minister of Agriculture and say things are happening? I don't think we must walk in there negatively, but there are issues. And some other delegation, maybe we can report on the progress and the good news and make that the main point. But then say, how do we get all the markets to work in the same direction for the sake of all the things that we've mentioned this morning? Because I think she's maybe sitting there, I don't know if she's aware of what's happening on all the markets. I dare to say I doubt. Well, how many markets we have now? 20? 23. Is she even aware that there is 23? Because according to the Constitution, as far as I know, it's not one of her responsibilities in the first place. Markets is not the minister's responsibility. It's been delegated to provincial or municipal responsibility. So that's where it lies. And now this municipality is not they don't even talk to each other at the Pretoria market. Now how will the markets talk to each other? So how are we going to address that one? That's still a grey area.
I would like to just offer some good news. While we are busy changing and amending our primary act, which is really not an easy process, and it's been ongoing for many years, We were fortunate last year to address the Portfolio Committee of Agriculture, which is a parliamentary committee, where we gave them an insight into the status of markets. So please know that I think the message is going through, albeit weak, and that's where I think the media will play a massive role to assist us in talking about markets, and it must be an ongoing narrative. We've got fantastic people at markets. We've got institutionalized knowledge that is there. But if we don't look after those people, they will just disappear eventually.
Yeah.
You know, people, the nice word is people become gatvol and they just leave. They can't afford that. We have to look after this institution. We have to look after an industry, and I call it a beautiful industry. So I think there's a lot being done. It's not enough. We should intensify all our efforts to just put markets on the map again. And they should be those institutions of note that we once knew. It must be an experience to go to a market. It must be an outing. It must be where you can actually feel the vibe. You must smell the produce, meet the amazing people. That's how I envisage a market. That's where we need to go. That would be a good start.
I think from my side, if I may be a bit selfish, you know, I don't have access to the minister. but you know, I think we can have access to the executive mayor. You know, because what we also want to do at a city level, we want the political leadership to understand the importance of the market. I think we've done quite well with the MMC. He's fully behind us, supportive, you know, in terms of our turnaround strategy, funding issues. In fact, when we also presented our business plan for the new financial year starting on the 1st of July, the executive mayor and the MMC were very supportive because, you know, the market is seen as an important entity going forward. You know, we still have our own challenges. You know, I mean, one of the things that I didn't speak about, but it's more at an operational level, where we want, you know, the market to get a clean audit. You know, because the mere fact that we spoke about money, where there is cash moving around, there's a lot of challenges from supply chain management issues, corruption, and everything else. So we still have to really address those issues. But already what we wanted to do from our side, you know, is to have these very focused, you know, roundtable discussions with the industry and the executive mayor to say, now let's elevate Joburg market from the rest of the other entities. Under the MMC that we report to, he has other entities, including Joburg Property Company, lot of issues there. MTC, lot of issues there, you know. And I think our entity is becoming, you know, one of the best performing entity, to be honest. So for me, colleagues, I can say maybe we can start at that level. And obviously, because you are discussing markets beyond the Joburg market, then you can go and engage with the minister. But a quick win, you know, and a low-hanging fruit, we can start with the executive mayor of the city of Joburg and say, executive mayor, you are hosting, you know, the biggest fresh produce market in the country. Let's have a conversation with you. You know, we started engaging with your board and your management. Now we want to engage with your administration as an industry. You know, so I think really there is an opportunity where we can even have that conversation. And for us as a board, we also want to be very transparent in terms of our engagements, you know, and be very accessible. We must understand that we must make this market, you know, a client-centric market. It's not about us. It's about the farmers. It's about the retailers. It's about, you know, those informal traders that are coming there. It's not about us, you know. So for us, really, we would like to say, if you are willing to start at that level, you know, we can arrange that. We can make it a point that we meet with the executive mayor, you know, maybe even other MMCs that are also critical. You know, i.e., as I was saying, I mean, how do we get load shedding when we are a city-owned entity? So if now the MMC for infrastructure, right, who's responsible for city power, now start understanding the importance of the market, it's a different conversation. When you do that, you are also helping us as a board, right? Because then you become our friends, right? in these engagements. So at some point they don't say, no, it's that crazy chair, with the gray hair, probably the guy is obsessed about his legacy. No, it's not a personal thing.
Yeah.
Okay, there is an element of being personal. You really want to succeed and you really want to make a contribution. And I think we've got a chance, colleagues, to turn things around. This board is dynamic, it's talented, and I think really, we came at the right time. Where from a political point of view as well, the environment is conducive for us to drive change and to really make an impact. So for me, if colleagues, you'll be keen, and again, I'll go back, I'll communicate with the board and management and the MMC, and we'll work towards a date.
Yeah.
I say in life, just do what you said you promised. If I've said I'll show up today here, just show up. It's as simple as that, right?
Yeah.
So if I leave here and say to you, we will facilitate a meeting with the executive mayor, we will facilitate a meeting with the executive mayor. Whether we agree with her in that meeting, it's something else. But can we facilitate a meeting? Yes, we can. Right.
Okay.
So for me, I'm not saying don't look at the minister. I think ministers are going to be a bit busy. There's an elective conference of the ANC. So at least our mayor is not part of any elective conference. So surely, we can have a conversation. And then once we manage, to have a model, then you can start, taking this thing around the country. And you say, okay, then how do we bring the other markets? At some point, once we're fixed, the Joburg market and things are moving to the right direction, we'd like to engage with other markets as well. Host even study tours where people can come to the Joburg market and say, how are you guys dealing with this particular issue? Let's start sharing best practice. With IMASA, when we were first appointed, our first meeting, induction, you guys wrote to us, I think a day before, you said, you want to come to the meeting to meet the board. I said to the colleagues, yes, come. Because we want to be transparent and open and be accessible. You came. You gave us a letter. The MMC was there. You gave us a letter. We gave you 1 hour. Said, address us. We just knew. Here we are. Give it to us as it is. And we'll take responsibility. You've heard me. I've never blamed the previous boards, right? And everyone, we are here now. We must take accountability. You can't say the previous board created a mess. No,
it's too late for that.
Right? And then we said we'll deal with the issues. I have now asked the company secretary to say we are ready to meet with you. Because now we've got a plan, and I think, there is some progress to say, let's engage. So even at that level, at a market level, we'll be engaging. To say, let's engage with your members, that we work very closely with as well. So for me, colleagues, again, I'm saying from our side, we'll be accessible. We understand that, we need to collaborate with the different stakeholders, but we also need to build that trust, because I think at some point, there was a trust deficit between government and the public sector. And the nice thing is, remember, the board is not public sector. We are private sector people, just playing an oversight role in a public entity. So we can start.
Okay, all right. If I may ask that we maybe close the conversation at this point, because I think we've got our solution to a large extent. I think, Ivania, thank you for the invite. I think from the potato industry side specifically, and not only from our side, but I think from the market side, from the private sector side, your plan in terms of moving along with the initiatives of the Joburg market sounds to me very feasible. And we have committed to have a number of roundtable events going forward as well. We can also include that type of process in our situation going forward in the conversation with the executive mayor. But we need to have somebody to take the baton on our behalf and to pull this process forward. Yeah. And no institution is stronger than the Joburg market for that. Yeah. So from our side, from my side, I just want to thank everybody for amazing contributions. And I would also want everybody that looks at this video footage of the conversation to know that we are moving in the right direction with positive information, and that we can actually see something that will be able to change the future of the markets as we see it. So thank you for everybody's contribution, participating in this. This is the closure of the formal conversation. But there's obviously a lot of conversation that can happen still this afternoon. Okay.
Can I say something? Now we must be very careful how we publish these conversations, because we mustn't get the farmers negative to the market. That will impact upon the prices. All right, we have addressed a lot of the issues. One main thing we haven't spoke a lot about is security on the market. That's our truck drivers are not happy of comfort with that. And then the other thing, the most important thing of the markets at the end is our farmers' monies are still safe. And that's a big, big thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just from my side as well, just to echo some of what Denise said, is just thank you for everyone for attending today. I've certainly learned a lot, and I think there is a lot of space to take the conversation forward. And then just from our side as Farmers Weekly, we will definitely make more of a concerted effort to report on the markets, not just the issues that face the markets, but also the solutions that we've spoken about, and the importance of markets and informal traders or movable retailers, as you say.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so that's all. I don't know if there's anything else anyone wants to.
I would like just to say thank you to Thokozani because this is actually the first time. I'm not long on Joburg Market, 2014 or 7-8 years, and to be honest, you're the first board member that attends meetings with us like this. I mean, we've had many promises. My door is open, my phone is open. Yeah, it's open, but we never reach you. And so, Thokozani, it's so important, and maybe I'll use this platform also to maybe for you, it was in our letter to consider that we have representation on the board, because then we communicate directly, for problems that take part on the market. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just one more thing. We've got people that are online that have been listening to our conversation. Just so thank you to them. And one of them has asked us a question, and just to say that we will respond to the question separately to them very directly.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. Can I? Well done, thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for that.
There's some edibles outside and a few conversations today. Ja, nee, ek gaan nou die los maak.
I thought they're going to put it on the screen. You know what? It's all relevant. We want action. But it's good. It's not.
At least.
Yes,
Ons moet net eers 'n draai gaan doen.
Okay, 100%.